Hey everybody, welcome back to Local 3 News. I'm here with Jon Teichman, owner of the Emporium, downtown Marquette. How are you doing this morning?
Doing great, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it comes around a couple times a year.
Yeah.
The time is here again for one of your famous record shows. Let's just start with a little bit of details. What are the dates for it?
Sure, so we have our poster right here featuring James Ostenberg, Michigan native, Iggy Pop. So the show gets started this Thursday, March 23rd at high noon, and will run for 4 days until Sunday evening, the 26th at close. So there's ample time for everybody out there to go through all of the stuff that Jeff Walker has brought up from Detroit, that I've brought from the area. We have over 10,000 different things, vinyl records, CDs, cassettes, posters, t-shirts, a little bit of everything.
And we've shared some of your and Jeff's story before, doing a couple of different features, but this is really, this show is 10 years in the making. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing that much time has gone by. Every show is certainly, there's elements that are physically challenging just to put it all together. But once those people start walking through the door, it's so worthwhile. And you know, that immediate recognition, we send out about 500 postcards, we do, social media. We really appreciate this kind of support, that you're able to give us to get the word out. And that's definitely part of the partnership. But I think the most important thing about it is that it's a community that everybody's welcome at, and that we really pride ourselves on putting out something for everybody. That someone walks through the door and they're going to gravitate or connect with some media item that we presented at the event.
And I think I saw that records are now outselling CDs.
Yeah, but in deference to, we will have some CDs too.
That's fair.
Yes.
But there's just something about that. They're both tangible physical items, but there's, for the people that are really into it, there is something different about vinyl, about a turntable, about records.
Yeah, and I think that it's really about, everybody has their space, their bookshelf. And I think that records occupy that same kind of physical space, where you can look at the spines, you can arrange them alphabetically. John Cusack famously in High Fidelity arranged his records autobiographically, where he had to connect each record to the next one. And I think the thing that's special about it is that you can really curate your own library of memories. You can access those, and you put that record on, you're looking at that liner art, you're looking at the jacket, you're looking at the lyric sheet, and it's really part of the experience.
And that's one of the things that I've experienced coming into your store, coming to the record shows, that I don't have to have this vast library or this vast knowledge of music to feel like I'm welcome there. I can come in and get a polka record with no shame. But that's just, it's everybody's different thing. And one of the neat things is that you have everything from classical music to polka to new wave, all the way up to even some more modern records.
Absolutely. We actually had a gentleman from Milwaukee who came into the shop this week who's a polka DJ. So I really, what I love about the work that I do is I'm constantly surprised. I'm constantly knocked off my feet a little bit by the requests that people make. And it really keeps me on my toes and keeps me engaged in being aware of what people are looking for and then being responsive. And Jeff Walker is the king of alphabetization. So alphabetizing the records really carefully, knowing where things are, that's really important too. So you can get the polka record to the person that needs it.
And just in the last couple of shows, or in what you've seen recently, are there some older artists that are getting more popular again that people are looking for? What are the hard to find?
Well, I think
the one thing that is really important for people to hear is that if they're looking for something, I feel like we really see that as a challenge, and we're like, yeah, bring it. We're going to help you find that thing. I think that globally, nationally, we have a network of distributors. There's a lot of other people out there that are doing this thing that we're doing, and we can connect with people to find that hard to find record that someone might be looking for. On the flip side of that, what people are interested in it's like stars in the sky. And, you know, if a Kate Bush song is featured on Stranger Things, or this new show, The Last of Us, which I haven't seen, but I understand a Linda Ronstadt song features in that show. And so those little pop culture moments, those crocuses that bloom, so to speak, thinking about spring, really get people's attention, where it's like an artist that has a 50-year career, but now a whole bunch of people are discovering that artist for the first time.
And that's interesting that, you know, somebody can come in, they've heard one of those things, and I think I kind of like this style of music now. And that's one of the things I've experienced with you doing these or just coming into the shop, is that you can hear what someone's interested in and make 10 different recommendations based off of that, listening to what they say. And that's one of the big things, that you listen to what they're saying, and you can kind of guide them towards discovering even more new art.
Well, thanks for saying that. And I think that, you know, in popular culture, in certain movies, the idea of a record store, the idea of a record seller, sometimes you think about the comic book guy on The Simpsons, you know, where it's someone who might be a little haughty and dismissive. And I think that we really want to be welcoming, we want to be inclusive, we want to build community, and we want to really tell everybody, like, you know, if you want to come to our event, and if you want to dig through the records, or if you want to talk about what you're looking for, we welcome and invite you to be there. And we have people that come back over multiple days, because there is so much stuff that it's going to take time to go through all of that. But all the time people do, you know, I remember someone saying to me, you know, do you have any self-taught primitive acoustic guitar players? And that was a jumping off point that we started with. So even when folks get real specific like that and real directed in their interests, we do our best to help and
Facilitate whatever they're looking for.
And that comes with years and years of experience. And obviously, like, you're wearing it on your shirt. You've got the posters from years past.
Yeah, Geoff made up these shirts, really special sort of timestamp in terms of, this is a collage on the back. We'll have record shirts available for sale at the show, but this one actually has a mix of different posters and flyers
from past events, which is really special.
So one of the things I asked for today, trying to find some different things, just to kind of show your musical knowledge flex. Bring in some records that people might not remember, but they should.
Sure. Well, we can start with, everybody knows David Bowie, but everybody may not know about Tin Machine. And Tin Machine was David Bowie's band in the 1990s, featuring the Sales brothers on either end of this picture, Hunt and Tony Sales, who are the children of, some of your listeners, your viewers may remember this, of Soupy Sales, the famous television TV show host. So Hunt and Tony were the drummer and the bass player for Tin Machine, along with the amazing Reeves Gabrels. But this was really a palate cleanser for David Bowie, where he started a band. So they did originals, but they also covered Roxy music, John Lennon, Neil Young, the Pixies. So it was almost like a grunge band, but they're wearing suits. And so again, David Bowie was a little bit ahead of the power curve. The really interesting thing about these Sales brothers is that they are also the rhythm section on the famous Iggy Pop song, Lust for Life. That famous drum bit that's been featured in commercials and in television, that was driven by the Sales brothers. And so Tin Machine, I feel like, is an underappreciated band from the 1990s. They made a couple different records, 2 studio albums and a live record. And this is a high school record for me. It's very near and dear to my heart, and I wanted to make sure I featured it this morning. Chris Mars, Tommy Stinson, and Slim Dunlap. But the really unique thing I think about the replacements is that people remember maybe the rowdy, raucous replacements, the more punky replacements, and I really enjoy the more introspective replacements, and that's what you have on this record. And this also led to a number of solo records from Paul Westerberg that I also think are worth checking out. It's really kind of an underappreciated era of, I guess you'd call it college rock or indie rock or alternative music, and it really anticipated the bands that everybody knows from the 90s, like Nirvana, like Pearl Jam. So check out The Replacements.
So for folks that maybe aren't familiar, what were the songs that they would know that maybe this doesn't seem like it's that same kind of album?
Right. I mean, I think that, their big hits are like,
Kiss Me on the Bus, or Bastards of Young, or Skyway, or Here Comes a Regular. And by this point, the band is breaking up. They all recorded their songs separately. They were famous for playing their last concert in Chicago's Grant Park, where they handed off all the instruments to the roadies and had the roadies replace them on stage playing their song. But this again was a record that was really near and dear to me in my high school and college years. And to showcase it on vinyl and talk about it, because this was really during the CD era, to talk about it, I think takes me back to those times. And I think that there might be even an argument made to say the most important music that you might have listened to might between those ages of like 14 and 22, where you have
the time to really sit and listen.
And that was also at a time, I mean, CDs were becoming more prevalent, there was music more readily available, but really you would sit and listen to the same record over and over until you had every word down by heart. You'd read through the liner notes and do all of that.
Yeah, and maybe people remember listening to tapes on a Walkman. Maybe people remember listening to things in the car. I mean, there's really that active listening that I think that maybe is something that, goes back to the past. But it's a really important part of the experience because they become your songs, they become your records. And that's a special thing that we get to share with people.
I know I have a few in mind, and I'm coming up blank with them right now, so that'll be a future segment. But you do have two more.
Yeah. So this is the super
Prolific band from Dayton, Ohio, guided by voices, Robert Pollard, and a whole musical guild of childhood friends and people that play music with him. This is a collection of singles that they released in 1993 and 1994 called Scalping the Guru. But Guided by Voices has over 100 releases. It's really perfect for record collectors because there's so much of their music out there that it is kind of intimidating in terms of like, where do I start? But the hits, the singles, that's a great place to start. They have some really formative records that were really important to me when I was living in Ohio, like Alien Lanes. Under the Bushes, Under the Stars is probably my favorite record. But they are just an amazing band because they're a mix of so many different influences that you can hear the Beatles, you can hear the Who, you can hear the Kinks, and their music goes from like very, very prog rock, Genesis sounding music to minute and a half power pop hits and everything in between. And if you get a chance to see them live, they play these epic multi-hour shows where they're cranking out like 75 or 80 songs. And it's just a celebration. And their records are also very special to me because they are able to really capture those moments and memories of that experience with this band.
And that's just the thing of, like, there are so many memories. Because whether it's going to concerts, listening to them, it's just those memories are imprinted of where you were, who you were with, what was going on at the time.
And Geoff and I get to be ringside
For people all the time that talk to us about people they saw play at the Lakeview Arena in Marquette, their first concert, people they met, the experiences, adventures that they had. I think that maybe in this post-pandemic time that those concert experiences and those moments even take on greater resonance. Because that idea of being out in this room with 6,000 people and it's an ice arena and the show is totally sold out and people are just shoulder to shoulder. And that's a special experience. And I think, that idea of like, what was your first, concert and what was that like? And finding that band that you connect with, that you remember from those teenage years.
That's what we're here to help do.
Yeah, you get to you see the lights come on for people when they find that piece of nostalgia.
Absolutely. And I think also it's
again, connecting the dots in terms of saying, well, if you like this, then have you considered these other bands? I actually had someone say to me on our Facebook page, well, I like the Beatles, and so I found myself recommending Red Cross and recommending Guided by Voices and recommending a band from Canada called Sloan, and feeling confident and comfortable that I was being a good steward of music to that individual to say, hey, listen, I know that you like this, but have you considered these other bands? And perhaps it might be something else you might enjoy.
Absolutely. So we're bringing back the final one you have. I think is really special. That there seems like there might be a wider appeal. This is a very specific taste, but I think the history behind it is what people are really going to connect with.
Yeah, so this record is one of hundreds of releases from Fayette, Michigan's Omohundro. He's really kind of an interesting guy. I guess he goes by Joe Omohundro. On this record, he goes by Omo the Hobo. This is a record that's probably, I don't know, 50, 60 years old. He was from Fayette, Michigan, would spend some time in California, made a lot of kind of bawdy comedy records, kind of a one-man band, novelty songs, sort of like the Weird Al of the UP, maybe. But this idea that there are these documents, that this gentleman made this record over 50 years ago, and that it turned up in a box of records that came in to one of our events, and that it's connected to our region of the country, it's connected to our history, and that I always feel like when somebody makes a record, it's like they're putting their stamp on the timeline in terms of saying, hey, I'm going to put this record out into the wild, and maybe I made 50 copies, maybe I made 500 or 1,000 copies, but that record is now out there in the continuum, you know, and people are going to see it in bins. And I've seen his records all over the place. So Omo the Hobo, very interesting, eclectic artist.
And the one thing with that is interesting that if people aren't familiar with the Party album,
Right.
that might be a foreign concept to some folks.
Right, and I think the idea too that, you know, we're going back like before on-demand television, before stand-up comedy specials, that this was, you know, 30 minutes of funny jokes that you would put on and listen to. And I mean, I think that people go back to George Carlin records. I remember Sam Kinison cassette tapes when I was in middle school. I remember probably Cheech and Chong records. Those are really popular. And I think those fall into that vein of comedy and party records. And it really is the idea that, you know, well, you can't have the stand-up comedian in your house, but you can put on the comedy record and relive those funny routines.
They were the Netflix special of the time.
Right, right.
So there's another thing that I want to touch on while we have you here. But before we do that, let's run through the details of the event just to keep that fresh for folks.
Absolutely. So it's going to be this Thursday, March 23rd, starting at 12 noon at the Ordock Brewing Company at 114 West Spring Street in downtown Marquette. Jeff Walker and myself, we will be there with tens of thousands of records and so much more from Thursday through Sunday the 26th. Their close is about 11 o'clock. And it's our 10th anniversary, our 10th year of these events, and we'd love to see everybody there.
And new this year, which I'm excited about, pop culture trivia.
Yes. So pop culture trivia, staff at the Ordock asked me to curate a carefully cultivated cornucopia of questions that come from a variety of different pop culture arenas, still carefully pulling together 6 rounds of questions. It'll be your standard pub-style trivia, teams of 6. There will be prizes that will be available, so people can compete for prizes. And I think the fun thing about it is that these questions will come from a variety of different sources, but should be fun and easy to answer.
If you're okay with it, let's test a couple of them out. Maybe we won't use these on Sunday, but just some of the ones you've got. I'm not promising any good results for trivia.
Well, I think, you know, something that's very near and dear to my heart for anybody that knows me is all things Star Wars. And it's really important with Star Wars trivia, I think, not to go down the rabbit holes of what happened in Marvel Comics number 13 in Star Wars from 1978, but staying focused on things that everybody knows. So a good question might be, there are these infamous killer teddy bears that have spears and live in the woods on a forest moon. Their name is never mentioned in the movie Return of the Jedi, but can you tell me what the name of those murder bears are called?
And I do know this one, but we did talk about it before. They are Ewoks, which I didn't know that they weren't mentioned in the film, so that was a new piece of trivia for me.
Absolutely, and I think it really
Speaks to like the breadth of the 46 years of Star Wars history that the Ewoks, who actually had 2 of their own TV movies, are really part of the cultural zeitgeist now.
We've never seen them since, have we?
Fingers crossed. I think that there was a brief Ewok cameo in the 3rd Star Wars prequel movie where they got Warwick Davis and his son to dress up as Wicket and his son, and they had a brief moment. So, and I guess for those people that do have Disney Plus, you can watch both of those Ewoks TV movies on Disney Plus. The Ewoks Adventure and the sequel, the Ewoks Battle for Endor. I think what's great about that second movie especially is it features Wilford Brimley as a kindly old man who lives in the woods, and his name is Noah. So if anybody needed that extra
push to watch those Ewok movies, I'm here to help.
So Star Wars trivia is making it in there.
Sure.
Hit me with one more.
Okay, so what is the birth name of one of our most famous superheroes, Superman? Can you tell me what his Kryptonian birth name was?
I want to say Steve.
Full name, please.
Stephen Mann.
Okay, no. Is Kal-El. And that is his Kryptonian birth name from the doom planet of Krypton that exploded. And his father, Jor-El, and his mother, Lara, placed the infant Kal-El in a rocket and sent that rocket to Earth.
I feel like I should have known that. It was buried somewhere in there, but the powers of recollection failed me on that one.
Okay.
Maybe I can redeem myself with one. I'm going to put myself through it.
Okay, so
a famous band that I regularly talk about that is from Michigan, that was really the roots of punk rock music, really the mashing up of Motown music and American rock and roll, garage rock. The band is called the MC5. Can you tell me what MC5 stands for?
Not even on a good day.
Okay, so the name of the Motor City 5, the Motor City 5. And the interesting thing is that, and this is just maybe a theory I'm kicking around, there was a famous band before the Beatles got big called the Dave Clark 5. And they were the biggest band in England before the Beatles. They had a singing drummer, and people would anecdotally call them the DC5. So you have to wonder if the Dave Clark 5
was influential in the MC5 choosing their name. But if you don't know the MC5, I'm letting everybody know that's a band you definitely have to check out.
Excellent. Well, I'm sure everyone at home would probably do a much better job than I would, but I'm sitting in front of the camera, so we did our best today. Thank you for letting me do a terrible job at that.
But now we learned about Ewoks, Kal-El, and the MC5. I think that's a great combination. If anybody wants to come down to the show and talk to me about Star Wars, comic books, or any kind of music,
I welcome and invite you to come on down.
Let's go through it one more time.
Yes, absolutely. So Thursday, high noon, Ordock Brewing Company, 114 West Spring Street. We will be there, Jeff Walker and myself, from noon until close, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So from March 23rd to March 26th, it's going to be a great event. We're really excited to see everyone, and thanks for the opportunity to help spread the word. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate it.